Hello, everyone. Welcome to Telling Tales. Welcome to Symbaroum on Wednesday nights. We are playing through the Witch Hammer, which is the second volume in the Throne of Thorns campaign, and we're quite a way into it now, but not far enough that we're anywhere near the conclusion. So if you're joining us for the first time tonight, hey, there's so much to catch up on, but don't worry, it'll all be lovely anyway. So before I start bringing on the others and start talking recaps and stuff like that, let's do a quick bit of the old familiar promo. If you check down below, there are links to our Twitch and our YouTube. You're watching this on one of those, why not check out the other? Twitch is where you can see all our material live, and YouTube is where it ends up in video on demand form. So there are many videos on there now. There's playing lots of different systems, lots of different stories for you to get involved in. We run 2 weekly campaigns at the moment. We run Symbaroum here on Wednesdays, Vason on Mondays, and we also do monthly one-shots. The next one of those monthly one-shots probably is, I say probably just because there's slight issues which we'll get into later with crew sickness, but we'll see how it's going. But we have one shot this coming Saturday, which is Dungeon World. We've run Dungeon World before. Pierre ran it maybe a couple of years ago now, or was it last year? I can't remember which. And it's sort of a sequel, but also kind of not. I don't think whether something is a sequel or not particularly matters in something as improv heavy as Dungeon World. So, yeah, if you're interested in that, get involved. That'll be at 3 o'clock in the afternoon GMT here on Twitch. There's also links down below to Patreon, Discord, social media, if those are the kind of things you enjoy. And yeah, let's start introducing people, and then we'll lead off with Symbaroum. So we've been doing a bit of a different style of recap over the last few weeks, and no one said they love it or they hate it. So I think we'll just decide amongst ourselves whether we like it or not, and then we'll either carry on or revert as we favor. So let's bring on our first player, Stephen. Hi, Stephen.
Hello.
Stephen plays Alindra, former Templar novice turned hitter of big things with her sword. And Stephen is going to give us a bit of a quick meta recap of the story so far.
The story so far. So, in the beginning, there was the kingdom of Alberator. Maybe I'll skip forward a bit from there. So we were in Davakar.
A little bit.
So we were in Davakar, right? Specifically up on Karvosti, which is the kind of big plateau meeting place. We caught wind of rumors of a missing person by the name of Elmendra. She went missing apparently in a quest to go and find the ancient city of Symbar, which is the sort of I guess the biggest prize possible for the treasure hunters in Davakar. So we went to find more information to see if we could track her down and find out if she's safe. We spoke to a former Black Cloak called Brother Bartho, who had adventured with her for a bit, named 3 locations where she had been, apparently in a sort of in her quest to try and track down the location of Symbar. The one that we've chosen to go to first is a place called New Earthmore, which is sort of east up the River Malgamore, which it's a kind of a camp for heretics, essentially.
Yeah, from many points of view, religious separatists could also.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, worshippers of the Earth Mother, who Elindra's kind of okay with. So we got there to find the settlement was under siege by a group of tribesmen led by a kind of gigantic, unpleasant guy called Thunderber. And us and alongside a guy called Degesto and his party of adventurers were persuaded to defeat Thunderber to make his kind of warband scatter to try to bring some safety to New Earthmore, so that we could get in and we could speak to Elida, who is a woman there who apparently had some contact with Elmendra in the past and might have some information for us.
Yeah. And that's basically where we were up to the last session, right? We had cut down Thunderbur and his raiding party, and were looking to go back to New Earthmore. But before you could, for your well-earned reward, you heard screams and cries coming from behind the walls of the village. And let's start bringing on the other players, and we'll talk a bit about that last session in a bit more detail as we do so. First up, we have Chris. And I probably should have said, John is probably waiting for the order in which I pull people up here. But just for your reference, John, it's going to be Chris, then you, then Mike, then Sam. So Chris plays Steo, former infantryman and city guard turned curmudgeonly sellsword. And yeah, the characters arrived basically back in New Earthmore. And managed to blow up the east gate of it with a little help from their new companion Degesto, and waded on through to try and find the culprits of all this screaming in the place. And I think it's fair to say, Chris, like many of the other characters, Steo was feeling almost a bit done with all this at this point.
Steo's been pretty much done with the whole adventure since someone decided we were going to go into Davokar on a missing persons hunt, because people go missing in Davokar and they're gone. But yeah, the recent events have been that evening was definitely a little bit too spicy for Steo.
Absolutely. And it was turning out quite spicy for everyone. Alindra and Askari in particular had taken some rather nasty wounds. And someone else who'd taken a little bit of wounds, but not too much, was Sir Arendar, last remaining member of House Dar, who is played by John. And we did have Arendar a second ago, but it seems to have gone back to Steo. There we go. Lovely. Hello. As you can probably tell from John's dulcet tones, John is joining us from a state of bodily wreckage tonight, as John is ill, but has decided to join us.
I have dragged myself from my plague bed for you, dear viewer.
Only for you, but not with Cam, because that would be some kind of like slowing down and looking at a car crash, you know. It's not the right thing to do.
I would also like to correct what you said. Aaron took no damage in either of the last two combats.
For some reason, I thought he got a little bit battered in the Thunderbur fight, but fair enough. Absolutely fair enough. Well, so Arendar is a slippy one, and also the kind of conscience of the group. And I'm interested how it felt, because Arendar has faith in Prios, right? Is at least kind of standard Ambrian level of religiosity, I think is fair to say.
I think he's kind of a point. He has faith in Prios, but not so much in Prios's church.
Sure. Which means you probably had less conflict than most, as you found out that the reason the residents of New Earthmore were screaming and shouting is because your target, as it were, or the person you wanted to contact, Elida, was being absconded with by a group of Templars led by a familiar face, Leohan Makal, who you encountered in the last story, Wrath of the Warden. And there was a brief bit of negotiating from Aaron, but I think is it safe to say it very clearly was apparent that the situation was untenable?
Yeah, he was very rude. He did not want to negotiate.
He didn't. And indeed, the state of these Templars seemed to be one of some violent fanaticism, as there was some discussion of dead Prios, the avenging thereof, and that Elida could provide information to help with that. And then I believe the technical term is a ruckus that broke out. And a character that was kind of like still approaching, having done some healing and not quite there with the others yet, was Father Anton, played by Mike. Father Anton is the group's theurg and holy man, and usually the one to be kind of least involved in the violence, although he does have a flail he likes to throw around every now and then. Anton was already feeling pretty out of place in New Earthmore, as having to conceal that he was a man of Prios, really. So I'm assuming it wasn't the most comfortable evening for him, even without the violence.
Yeah, I think Anton felt very sort of naked without his theurg robes and without his religious artifacts that he wears about himself, and having to just not be himself, really, not let anyone know that he's a priest. So yeah, a bit of an odd experience.
Absolutely. Luckily, the conflict was definitely resolved a lot easier than that with Thunderbird and his raiding party. The Templars, and it actually proved a bit of a surprise to me because they weren't, they didn't have an unimpressive little stat block, but the Templars were cut down fairly simply by the combination of our player characters and their allies under Degesto. And let's bring on our final player, Sam, who plays Ascarai, our changeling scout and dealer of DPS with that vicious bow of his. Yeah, basically what happened was you were put up in a temple to the Earth Mother overnight, and then you got to talk with a leader the next morning who seemed very reluctant to talk to you, more than a little hostile. I mean, there were some mitigating circumstances to that, at least, although I think not so much from the perspective of most of your characters. But a leader delivered you quite a bit of information about the plateau of Karvosti and what lay beneath it, some general instructions about how to navigate it, some places to go, some places where not to go. And also, there were a couple of little other snippets of information, like the fact that there is 2 ways to access it, including an undergate, which she seemed to kind of think that you were probably looking for, even though this is the first you've heard of it. So that could be an option to gain access. And there was one other little weird snippet of information, and I'm going to be an asshole and say, does anyone remember what it was? Did anyone kind of register something unusual in what she said that wasn't necessarily talking about how to get around Karvosti or what places are there?
Is it to do with the previous Huldra? Is that what you're referring to? Where there's like a previous Huldra, which is like head witch of all the clans, who is in some way corrupted or insane or something like that, and is kept under Karvosti, basically.
Yeah, this sounds very odd to you. Ascarai, probably the one of you most familiar with kind of, the clan folk and witches and things like that. Huldra is a position you hold to death. So
there isn't normally such thing as a former Huldra.
Correct. Oh, there is, just, I don't really know what the clan folk burial customs are. I imagine they have different ones for each clan or so forth. But yeah.
Certainly, I guess strange. It wouldn't be common. I don't think it's not common knowledge that this previous one is alive and a prisoner.
It's definitely not. Maybe it is known to some people on Karvosti, you wouldn't know, but yeah, it seemed unusual, and that a leader had been kind of essentially kidnapped by the witches of Karvosti in order to try and help calm the former Huldra. A leader said that she had seemed to have some kind of mystical power over people's emotions or some such. We didn't really dig too much into that because she was being quite hostile, and it was very clear they wanted you gone. And once you had that information, that's essentially what you did. You were sort of encouraged to leave New Earthmore, and then I think we left it with you kind of near the river, near the canoes you'd use to come up the river. And I suppose a conversation was to be had with Degesto about how far your alliance goes, what happens next, and what you do now, ultimately speaking. And you know what? We're going to dive straight into that. And we're going to dive into that with the notion that Degesto, and again, like, you can say, no, fuck it, we're leaving, Matt. Degesto wishes to camp overnight somewhere nearby. He's happy to do it across the river, like away from New Earthmore, because he wants to give his 2 heavily wounded employees like overnight to heal up. And while that happens, he and the 2 less wounded companions are going to make a canoe, which he claims to know how to do.
This is basically the morning, right? Like,
Yeah. He wants to basically leave first thing tomorrow morning and take a day to rest up.
Okay.
Steele will not disagree with that. Steele very much wants to go back to take a good look at the battleground where we got shift of Thunderba.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think I'm just going to make the case for going and checking out the what remains of the camp, and possibly just setting off today.
Okay, so you're
We
in
can
favor
talk
of
about
not waiting for DeGesto.
Well, I assume we can set off kind of in private when we're kind of rummaging around the big camp, unless the Gesto's following us there.
Yeah, just I guess we'll do the camp, and then we'll see what happens when we get an opportunity to sort of talk not within earshot of DeGesto.
Sure, but do you want to talk to him about what he proposes first?
Yeah, all right, we'll ask.
Stephen seems very anti the idea of working with allies here.
Allies is such a weird term in Davokar.
Sure. Okay, well, when you get kind of over the let's say we cross over the river without any incident, probably a couple of trips with the boats, right? You get to the other side. DeGesto leads the group out past where the kind of more mangrovey, swampy area is on the other side to where there are larger, more sturdy trees. Picks one and kind of with a couple of axes instructs his fortune hunters to start kind of chopping it down. And as he does so, he kind of rummages in his pack, gets out like what seem to be like some quite basic woodworking tools, including a large axe of his own, like a felling axe. And as he's doing this, he sort of like sets it all to one side and is kind of looking up at another tree for various branches and hacking lower ones off. He's sort of stripped himself to the waist, and if you thought he looked like a bear before, like he's covered in fur essentially, huge brawny man. Let's have a picture of him up again, just to remind us what he looks like. If we want to place an age on him, by the way, he's quite older. He's probably nearing maybe 60-ish or so. And as some kind of like large sturdy branches come tumbling down, I'm assuming while people are like maybe getting some food or sat nearby, he turns around and says, "So I reckon our agreement could go further. Don't know about you."
What do you
happy
propose?
for our agreement to go as far as the Sun Temple, at least. Have you got a lead for this catastrophe?
Same ones you do, I imagine. Fire Maroon. Yefron Isle. That sound about right?
Yeah. Nice pint would sound about right as well.
See, that's good thinking right there. You're going straight to the palace, are you?
I think
cracks a huge
here's my
branch.
proposal. And like when I say here's that proposal, I'm kind of almost throwing my voice so that the party are aware that this is kind of more for the OG group and not the tag-alongs. But the first point of call is definitely going to be the Sun Temple, because that's the only place where you can get news. Because last I heard, things are shifting in Ambria, and
not wrong.
As with previous experience in these matters, these things tend to start slowly but then happen very, very quickly. So God, maybe there isn't even an Ambria when we get back. Maybe it's 4 warring duchies.
He has like a big rack of large branches he's torn down now and is kind of splitting them one after the other, kind of holding the axe kind of near the head and using it quite hard to break them apart. Could be right. Getting news from the Sun Temple, not a bad idea. However, I need to go back to Karvosti first. Because I came out here with what I judged to be the right amount of manpower for the job, and now it's down to about half strength. So I need to get more swords. And I would suggest that if we're going to work together, you might want to do that as well. And here is why I think we should work together. How do you think that fight with that warlord would have gone if either of us were on our own?
Less favorably.
Sounds about right. The way I see it, if Symbar is out there, and if it's everything that people say it is, there's more than enough for 2 groups like us. Hell, we could probably add another 2 groups to us, and we wouldn't even begin to touch what we could take from the place. I don't care about that. I just want to get there, take enough for me to retire on, take enough to pay well to the people who come with me. I don't want no throne. I don't want the power. I don't want the magic. I just want treasure. And I'm sure there'll be more than enough to share. That's my thinking. I'm also thinking that I am a disgraced former artillery officer, and you are the heroes of Thistlehold. And while I can blow things up, you can get me into places while we're working together. No shares, nothing like that. We just take everything we can. And mark my words, there's others, and they won't give you an offer like that. Those Templars, for one. I've seen some of Corinthia's hounds as well, and they don't work with anyone. Not even famous people like you.
Some of the brass from Thistlehold emptied as well. Guardsmen, skilled ones at that.
So that's my proposal. We work together. We take what we can when we get there, if we get there. If not, maybe these 2 other places have some treasure of their own anyway. I have some notions about where to go next. If you have different ones and you make a good argument, I'm happy to go along with it. And if you don't want that, and this is where we part ways, I can respect that. But I can't say if you're not working with me, you won't be working against me.
Oh no, we've heard that before as well.
Who from?
So you would go all the way back to Karvosti to then maybe come all the way back to the Sun Temple and Symbaroum.
Up Malgamore isn't a dangerous trip. I'd rather take my time and be safer.
Yeah, I can see the sense in that.
You think these other groups working separately will work quicker than us?
Do you need extra swords if you're with us?
Could have used them back there, couldn't we? What if how many died of his 3? The 3 who died. How would we have fared if even they hadn't been with us? Maybe we would have been fine, but we would have been worse. And for all we know, these other places have far worse in them than some barbarian warlord and then a group of rogue Templars. You've heard the stories, right?
Oh yeah. Things woken up that shouldn't have been.
Don't like the sound of that. And that's this Fria Ligan place beyond the Sun Temple. I'd rather have more blades with me when I go there, thank you. I've seen enough companions and temporary allies decide to get somewhere faster than everyone else in Davokar. Do you think they came back?
You ever been under the forest, in the caves?
Underworld. A couple of times. Not far, not deep.
Yeah. I was really hoping not to have to see it twice myself.
Sounds like that's the way into the Karvosti. We've got to find this gate. And from what I hear tell, this Fria Ligan place had a gate that Elmendra wanted to look at. Maybe she needed to know about the mechanism. Maybe that tells her where the underworld gate is. There's a reason she went to both places.
We know there's Black Cloaks have gone to Fria Ligan as well.
Black Cloaks. We should work together.
They're not going to be happy to see any of us, let me tell you that for free.
All the more reason to stick together then.
Yeah, you've...
Look,
okay.
I know you're going to go away and have your own chat about this. I'm not an idiot. You wanted to go look at that battlefield? Go look at the battlefield. Scavenge what you can. You did more of the killing and you killed the warlord. Take what you want. And if I don't see you again, then farewell, I suppose. If I do see you again, and it isn't because you've come back and joined up with me, I'm a practical man. I can't guarantee. Well, you know.
We're very well aware, yeah. Come on then, let's go see what's left.
He nods and you leave the members of his much smaller party kind of carving out a canoe and oars to return down the River Malgamore. I think we're just kind of crossing over the river in our boats and going to that the battlefield as it was. Yeah, I mean, you arrive at it. The residents of New Earthmore don't seem to have come out here to kind of investigate it in any way. It is, in fact, untouched from overnight. It also seems like the members of the raiding party didn't return to retrieve keepsakes or the bodies of their companions or treasures or anything like that. They seem to have fled as soon as Thunderball was cut down. The bodies of the clansfolk warriors are everywhere. The place, it has to say, smells fairly bad. There's the rich iron scent. There's smell of micturation and the waste that human bodies give off. And there's also a very overriding burnt smell to it all. Some of the bodies that were kind of still aflame when they were died while fighting have burnt to a crisp overnight. The bonfires are burnt out, and yeah, everything is there. The huge body of the rage troll, the clanfolk, and Thunderball himself collapsed in a huge heap, kind of warhammer still in hand as he kind of toppled over half onto it. He was kind of kneeling down, right, and he kind of folded onto his back, so he's just there kind of eyes defiantly glaring up at the dawn sun.
I think I think I'll try and find the nearest fire pit and kind of kick the corpses off probably the sitting logs that have been lined around it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just kind of sit down and see if anyone wants to come and have a quick chat before we get our hands dirty.
Yep, take a seat.
Yeah.
Same.
Alindra, I know I say this from time to time, but holy Prios, that was incredible. I've never seen anyone go against something like that for so long and hold their ground. I'm actually in awe.
I think Revelia helped a lot. I think I was trained to follow the plan, and the plan was go for Thunderbird. And once you've committed to something like that, there are only two ways out. And you don't want one of them.
You did well. Very well.
Thank you. What are we going to do about the Gesto?
Made some compelling points.
He would be very useful to keep with us.
He would be somewhat useful to keep with us.
we ultimately have to answer the question of our aims and reasons for pairing up being quite different.
Yeah, we might be going to some of the same places, but not for the same reasons.
And if we are not going for the same reasons, then us like traveling with a bigger group of treasure hunters draws more attention to us, makes us more of a target, maybe makes our goals a bit harder.
Given that we were clocked within 5 minutes of meeting this group because of our legacy from going down that Prios Forsaken hole, I think traveling incognito is probably not going to be the best bet. And I think as much as we can get that guy into places, he might be able to get information out of places a bit easier than us. But I think more pragmatically, what we're missing right now is information. How long have you been away? 2 weeks? God, Thistlehold could be an ashen crater. Like, Yindaros could have turned into a giant balloon for all we know. We've got no information on how much and how fast things have changed. I say we go back to the Sun Temple. We see if we can get any news. And then on the auspices of breaking the trip or on the auspices of getting a crappy pint. And then after that, we make our decision based on that news. Onward to Carvosti, up to the cursed graveyard or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I'm happy to work with Dagesta, and I'm happy to go to the Sun Temple, but I think my opinion is we need to head to Faramurrin rather than back to Carvosti. I think imagine if we'd arrived here a day later. Alida would have been gone with the Templars. And think about how long we've taken to get to Faramurrin, where there are so many groups, even that we know about, and probably more that we don't know about, who are on these same paths. And the other thing is, like, we know the Black Cloaks have gone to Faramurrin. They were a capable bunch. They were well provisioned. They were well prepared. They seem like a very competent band, and we know they've been there already. Whatever is there, hopefully they've cleared it out. But at the very least, they should have put a dent in it. And I just don't think we have the time to go back to Carvosti and then back to Faramurrin. Like, we're just going to be behind the curve. I just don't think we have the time. But I'm happy to go to the Sun Temple and then see what the news is.
I think also time is much more of an issue for us than it is for Degesto. He's chasing Simbar, we're chasing Ilmindra, and the longer we take, the worse her chances are.
Yeah, Simbar's not going anywhere.
I would like Degesto to accompany us, but if he is not willing to come with us from the Sun Temple, then I think we have no choice but to go on to Faramurrin, unless, as Dio says, something horrible has happened further south by the time we get there.
So here's another good reason to have a quick break at the Sun Temple. We can make inquiries as to whether, well, everyone knows a group of Black Cloaks went north. Has there been any rumors of a group of Black Cloaks heading south again? Because if the Black Cloaks aren't at Faramurrin, I'm much happier going there with a smaller force of arms.
Well, if they haven't come back, that either means that they're still there, or it means that they haven't come back.
Yeah.
Neither of those are good for us.
And if they have come back, it means that they aren't there and they achieved their goals while there, which means a dent has been taken out of whatever the hellspawn stuff lies in wait.
I think we can agree to travel with Degesto as far as the Sun Temple. I think we can agree that our next steps are based on the news there. I am with Askarai in that if a journey to Faramurrin is in our future, I think we should do it while we're up this river already.
I agree. There is also the outside chance that we will meet another band of treasure hunters at the Sun Temple, and maybe they would be open to joining forces.
Yeah. The problem
One
with
thing I would-
hiring people is everyone brings their own agendas.
One thing I would say about the Sun Temple, I'm happy to go there. I think it's probably the best place we can go to get a little bit of news, a little bit of rest. But bear in mind, the Black Cloaks are part of the church. If they come back from Far Maroon and decide they want to work against us, then the people at the Sun Temple will help them over us if they're coming back. We should be cautious while there. It's not purely a place of rest and it's not purely a safe place to be. We should be. Maybe this is not a very Ambrian perspective on a Church of Prios, but I would be cautious while there.
We were also threatened by that group of Black Cloaks. Well, threatened is perhaps the wrong word. Warned about what would happen if we were going to come into contact with them in Davokar. And
I would hope that. I would hope that it's not automatic attempt to kill us on sight just for being in the same part of Davokar, but I guess we can't guarantee that that's not the case.
Right.
And if last night is anything to go by, I don't even think the church is part of the church right now.
Yes, we need caution.
At least let's get to the dock where we got that crappy mead last time, and then we can decide if it's worth the trek up to the Sun Temple. At least there we can get news.
I think we should go there, but we should just be cautious while there. I don't think we should arrive at the Sun Temple and feel like, oh, we've arrived at a safe place and we can let our guard down. I think we can arrive there and look for news and look for hopefully a safe bed for the night. But we should. I don't think we can let our guard down until we're back in Thistlehold, realistically. And even then, who knows?
In the short term, should we pick this place clear and get somewhere upwind?
Yeah. Steele will hoist himself uncomfortably to his feet.
So the general notion is to propose to Degesto that you're happy to travel with his party to the Sun Temple, and then, depending on what you hear from there, either you go along with his plan to return to Karvosti and then go either back here or to Yepheron, or, and this is unless you basically hear something that makes you change your mind, the proposal is to say to him, look, come with us to Far Maroon. We're not going to Karvosti. Like, we're going to do this while we're here. Join us or don't.
Yeah.
Is that generally the idea? I
think the main reason that we're going to part ways is if we can't come to an agreement on which direction to go to, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the sort of the more philosophical question of why you're on this isn't enough to break it. It's more a question of, well, if he's going that way, then we're going this way, unless you hear something that changes your mind. Yeah. And hey, maybe if you give him that ultimatum, maybe he will also change his mind. Let's see how that goes. Sure. So we're picking this battlefield clean, are we? Well, you will be delighted to know that the dead clansfolk as a whole have on them absolutely nothing of value. They have their weapons, but gathering relatively low value weapons probably isn't a good use of your inventory space. And what they do have is several jars full of throwing spiders. If you want, you can take them with you. Thunderbird is a slightly different matter. Thunderbird is carrying, well, for a start, there's his hammer, which you didn't see any kind of like indication that it has any kind of, that it's like an artifact or it has any kind of mystical power, but it is a very large, exceptionally well-made hammer. That certainly served him well. It's definitely carryable back as long as no one is actually carrying it. Like, you could definitely take it in a canoe and store it somewhere or whatever, and then sell it or use it or whatever. But it is very large and very heavy. It's probably worth some money, especially if like it's the famed barbarian warlord Thunderber's hammer.
It's got a cool backstory.
Exactly.
He
also has on here, and out of interest, who's the one actually searching his body?
I guess I'll go look.
Sure. He also has a wooden figurine of a what seems to be a kind of a large sort of totem-like, godlike spider that has its kind of like legs swooped down. So it's quite like a tight sort of carving, but it's clearly a spider sort of figure. And he also has a belt that is garnished with fangs of slain beasts. Many, many, many different kinds of fangs, some of which are large enough that they stretch down sort of halfway down Thunderber's thighs, and he was a large, large man. Again, it doesn't look mystical or like an artifact. It looks like a display of his own trophies.
Okay.
Again, might be worth something, but none of it's like treasure, you know what I mean? But all these things could be worth some money.
So, like, I will point this out to the others, and I'm not going to try and kind of hide any of it. From Alindra's point of view, I think unless you can wield the hammer, there's probably not enough value in a comically oversized hammer to make it worth trying to transport it. She is not that keen on a reminder of all of the things that live in Davokar and the size of their teeth. She's absolutely having the cursed statue.
Sure. Well, while you're searching her, then, unless anyone else is going to speak up, Revelio will reach out for the belt of fangs and kind of hold it up and say, if it's not worth much, can I, Sir Alindra?
I'll look around at the others.
Fine by me.
If you're a teeth fan, yeah.
She kind of like holds it up and kind of looks at it with some kind of like marveling expression, and then kind of rolls it up very carefully and fits it into her pack, sort of pulling out a little bit of rations and kind of eating them to make room as she kind of packs it in around her some spare clothing.
Fair enough.
I want to, because the reason why I didn't jump at Thunderber for the loot was I wanted to check the other clansmen to see did any of them have spider fetishes or spider figurines?
None of the. You know what? Probably a couple of them have like little sort of maybe little medallions of spiders or little carved spider tokens, but none of them as grand as Thunderber's. And of course, they had the throwing spiders. So, yeah.
I'm gonna grab myself a little spider. Thing, because I'm still got a fond memory for Zanatha and our brief but wonderful time together. Go watch the other videos if you want to know that story.
That makes it sound far worse than what actually happened.
I mean, what happened was pretty bad.
There's no spider fucking on my streams.
But it was the first time Stu had been kissed since Alberator.
Yeah.
You don't know that.
Albeit with some kind of proboscis, but never mind. The hammer. Is it wieldable? What's the entry level for
I don't
hefting
think
this thing?
I don't think there's any reason you can't wield it. Let me tell. So it is massive, which means no, that's a positive. Yeah, I think the only thing is it's unwieldy, which means an attack with a weapon requires a full turn, both combat action and movement action. That's it. I don't think there's any other kind of like rule about whether it can or can't be used. If you're interested, as I say, it's got no mystical qualities, but it has massive, which means if you strike against something, Well, it says if a massive weapon is used against a player character, the player instead rolls the armor die twice, and the lowest value determines the level of protection. I'm sure there's an equivalent rule if it's used against an enemy. I'd guess like their armor's halved or something. I can look that up if it's more, something you want to know. Unwieldy, like I say, you have to use your combat action and your movement action to use it. It is long, and it is precise, which gives you a +1 to attack tests.
Okay. I think I'm going to pick that up. So 1 second while I write all this down. Massive,
Unwieldy,
cumbersome, unwieldy,
long, and precise. I would definitely say and this is just me house ruling, I don't think you can. I think you will struggle even to march with both this and the spear because it's so heavy. I think if you got another way to transport it, like the canoe, that's absolutely fine. But I don't think you can go around on a regular basis armed with both, because I think it's just too much to carry.
I think Steele's definitely going to try and hoik it onto the canoe unless anyone actually tries to stop him from doing it.
The canoe definitely sits a bit lower in the water, but it's still fine.
What he might also do is maybe, like, if Elindra's maybe Steele and Elindra are having weapons talk while we kind of size up this massive thing. But what Steele might do is bequeath his backup spear to Elindra and see if you'd be interested. Given we're going to, I'm thinking of taking this. Would you consider taking this off my hands? Steele unleashes a kind of very nicely made Ambrian spear.
I'm not trained in the spear as much as I am the sword.
I'm not trained in the hammer at all, but I can probably get a nail or two with it.
I can probably help to carry it.
Revealer expresses that she would be happy to carry the spear.
Ooh, yes.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense to me. Okay, so there is a spear which has deep impact and long, which I will bequeath to Revelia for care so I can carry this ridiculous hammer.
Oh, so your original spear had deep impact as well. Is it just that the bronze spear has deep impact and precise?
And precise, yes.
Wait, this is the bronze spear?
No. You're getting the kind of knockoff Tesco value bronze spear.
Okay.
You're getting the pre-bronze spear.
The supermarket spear.
No, sorry. The pre-bronze spear is buried under a load of rock. This is the one I bought as a backup weapon.
This is spear 2. Yeah, whereas you've been mostly going around with spear 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, this is spear 3, and he's been going around with spear 2.
Yeah, 2.
This is the backup to spear 2, which he bought after.
Okay, right.
He wanted a backup in case the bronze spear got broken or something.
It's hard to place the bronze spear because we know nothing about it, so it's quite difficult to kind of attach it to a narrative. But you're not getting the bronze spear.
I will kill you. And I don't mean Steo.
This is there was a special offer on spears, so he decided to get one just in case.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Asco would like to see, are there any arrows around? Are there any like unburnt to a cinder arrows that Asco can pick up?
You know what do we usually do? What do you have a roll you usually make, don't you?
Yeah, I normally just take like half the arrows that I shoot,
sure,
assuming I have time to loot.
Well, this time let's say
combat because I didn't have time to loot.
This time, let's say that there's a quarter of what you shot.
Okay,
that's still there because burning and yeah.
That's
that is the half recovered is a house rule that we implemented, but I can't remember where it is. But I did actually read in one of the books that is the actual rule.
Oh, is it? Okay.
But is that like?
I think
there's like an option. These barbarians have arrows. Like, do they? Are there any arrows that they shoot?
None of them have. No, they're all bows. No.
Okay.
I'm afraid
barbarians.
Was there also a troll or something?
Yes, there was a large rage troll that Steve killed.
And someone go and have a look at that just to see if there's anything around.
Just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
You look it over and you're sure that there's probably a few things that a dedicated craftsman could do with say the hide, or even the teeth, maybe, or the claws, or various things that could be done like that. Whether they are ornamental or practical, but nothing that you could immediately make any use of. It's an impressively large creature. I don't think we've encountered a troll before, right? Askarai's probably seen them at various points traveling through Davakar, but even for a troll, it's quite a large specimen, but didn't help it. So okay, yeah, and that is all the loot. That's all the loot available, really. They weren't carrying many things with them by the look of it. Incidentally, Steo, the design of Funderbur's spear, of hammer rather, has various sort of like artistic kind of carvings and flourishes to it. And again, on that, a couple of times you see the image of a curl spider. So it seems to have been, if we needed any more evidence that a spider meant something to this clan of barbarians. And I think we did have, right? I think when they started using the throwing spiders, I asked Askarai to make a roll to see what he knew. And I think you failed it, right? So we've just kind of moved past that.
I think Askarai made a roll and knew that they were like the spider guys.
Right.
Yeah,
and then they threw spiders. Because I remember Askarai warning people about them throwing spiders at people.
Oh, okay, that's fine then. Okay, so we know they were Gallians who are from north, like even further north than your clan, who are quite northerly.
Yeah. Askarai would take a look around to see if I can't imagine that this clan would like write anything down, but like Askarai would take a look around to see if there's any indication of like why they're here, what they're doing. Like,
well. So you're going to search tents and stuff then? Well, yeah. Funderbur's tent.
Yeah, that's probably where Askarai would start to try and get an idea of what like this is very far south for them.
Mm-hmm.
As far as Askarai knows, like, seems strange to him.
Yeah,
and we clocked earlier that they have clear evidence that their clan tattoos have been covered over or removed or scarified.
Some of them have had clan tattoos burnt off. Not all of them, but some of them.
Which I will absolutely point out if I haven't already that this is the same organization or the same movement within the Northerners that brought the raid on that village the other day, all those weeks ago, with the baby basilisk thing.
I swear, yes, and there's also several of them. Now that you examine their bodies, also have a new tattoo on them of a crown entwined by thorns. If we remember that particular symbol, which I'm assuming we do. I'm clicked away from the thing, so I can't.
We specifically remember that we have never seen it before and can't assign it to anything. So it's,
but we remember that it was on the.
We remember from last week, yeah.
I swear to God that there is something to be found in Funderbur's tent. Yes, there we go. What a weird place in the text to put it. So who said they were searching his tent?
Me.
You. Well, I've already told you there's something in there, so I won't make you roll for vigilant or anything. That would be cruel. It's not a large tent. It's like basically just a large lean-to that he's sort of propped up and crawled his kind of massive form into to sleep. Like for a normal person, they'd have a bit of room, but Funderburg definitely did not have much room to move in here. You find not very much other than like a sleeping roll. But you do find a number of small pieces of paper, which have like a little tie still around the end of them. Could you roll cunning for me, please, to try and figure out what these are?
Okay. I need a 10 or less. I rolled an 18, so I do not know what they are.
Okay. They do have writing on. Which I'm happy for you to roll cunning to read and Anton to roll cunning to read, because Anton has Lawmaster.
I'll attempt to Well, I guess have I already failed to attempt to read them?
No. The cunning roll was for what a little piece of paper with like a little tie at the end of it was likely for.
In that case, I'll just take the tie off, thinking it's nothing, and try and read them. And if I fail, I'll give them to Anton, who I think
you can still read it with the tie on. It's just like scrunched up at one end with.
Okay. In that case, I'll like glance over them and see if they seem important.
Sure. Well, give me another cunning roll then, please.
I rolled a 9, so I do make it.
Okay. There are a number of messages here. They contain variously demands for reports and express a kind of what you can sense is a kind of growing anger at Thunderber for not following orders. They are all signed with what in the Northern Clan's writing is a single letter R.
Okay. I'll probably take them and hand them to Anton regardless, as someone who might also understand them and might understand more of the subtext than Askray does.
Let's role play that out a bit. So let's have you leap kind of crawling backwards out of the tent and maybe getting Anton's attention. Would Anton perhaps be giving some form of last rites to the Ambrians who died here?
Yeah, I think probably so. Especially if they like had anything about their bodies which indicated that they were believers.
They probably there's 3 of them. Let's say 2 of them have kind of like wooden sun pendants.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be going through the last rites.
And I think we did determine that it's pretty likely that Ambrians burn the dead, right? Like that seems like it would be the thing to do, right? That or maybe like a sky burial. But like, yeah, so I think if we want to like burn their bodies here, that probably would feel appropriate for them as Ambrians.
I'll help Anton set up the fires, but before I do, I will also probably search over their bodies, not as in like looting them, but retrieving anything that DeGasto and his crew might want returned.
Sure. Yeah, they have very basic. They do have some supplies on them, but pretty basic ones, like a little pocket of rations and a remaining like good hatchet knife, a good knife, and sort of very things like that. You do notice that as you do so, Aaron, that 2 of them are, it has to be said, very young. Like young enough that they could be expected to be on a fool's errand out in Davakar, but they shouldn't have been.
Do any of them have any keepsakes on them?
None that you can really recognize, no.
Right.
But there may be those are with their packs, which DeGesto is presumably going to retrieve from their original camp. Or maybe you've already done that. Let's say you've already done that.
Cool, yep.
So Askray will come out of the tent and whatever Anton is doing will call over to him. Father Anton, I think do you know the language of the Gowans? I have some letters here.
I can understand it a small amount, perhaps. Can I take a look? I guess. Yeah, I'll take the parchments and have a look over them.
With Askarai's help, I'm not going to ask for a roll to understand them because you can definitely do so. I'll ask for a cunning roll for you to try and realize the significance of the ties on the things.
I did pass.
Yeah, these ties are for tying around the leg of a bird.
Oh, okay. So these messages have been sent by bird.
Right.
Which is interesting. This letter, this R, does it mean anything to you?
Nothing to me. I mean, from what I know of the Gans, it's very surprising that they're here this far south. I know that some of their tattoos have been burnt off, and perhaps they're not kind of under the Gowan influence anymore. But
Have they gone completely rogue? And the content of these messages sounds that way. They kind of forsaken their tribe, come under the influence of someone else. You're on mute.
it definitely seems that way to me. Even of my clan, who are further south than I say my clan, where I grew up, they're further south than the Gowans, and I haven't seen a member of my clan down even near here for years. To find a whole war band of Gowans, I don't think I can't imagine that the Gowan kind of clan chief has any idea that he's going to conquer this territory or has any real interest in this land. It seems like there must be some other influence that's playing a role here for this warband to be this far south. It seems the only possibility. And this letter, I don't know. It doesn't have any significance to me.
Just to double check I understood, Matt, you said that the Thunderbird's men did have the crown entwined by thorns tattoo, which is the same as we saw at the Viara outpost.
Correct.
Cool. So if Alindra may overhear parts of this conversation in the camp, and will perhaps pick up an arm of one of the men and kind of point to it and go is this why they're so far south?
Could well
Is this
be.
some new clan, some new allegiance?
I just pray it's not another cult.
It could be this. We've been hearing rumors about this person who's, I don't know. I don't know if uniting the clans is the right idea. I can't imagine every member of the clan is joining together, but
No. But perhaps this warband didn't consider itself Gowan anymore. It considered itself something else.
Yeah. But even the fact that this influence has spread so far north, the Gowans are not even amongst the clans, the Gowans are considered, I don't know, not particularly.
They're not friendly, that's for certain.
Yeah. You wouldn't want to come across a Gowan in Davakar, even if you are from another member from another clan. It's worrying that the influence has spread so far north and captured the interest of the Gowans. It's a very bad sign.
Matt, is there any evidence of a cage for messenger birds or anything like that?
No, nothing like that. No.
Okay.
It's very bare bones. They were obviously traveling very light. Yeah.
So the likelihood is that these were messages that were delivered to this warband rather than.
You'd imagine so. Yeah.
Is there anything in the message that says what Thunderbar is meant to be doing?
No.
It's just annoyed that he's not doing what he's meant to do without.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I have to wonder whether it's coincidence that he's here trying to plunder a settlement or if he's here for the purpose of a leader.
These people have nothing. Really. It's certainly nothing that the Gowans would really want or need. It must be a leader. I cannot believe this is a coincidence.
Knowing what I know about the settlement, I agree. But that said, I think some clansmen may assume that any Ambrian settlement has desirable artifacts or has something they might want in it.
Or, in all honesty, they may just want to slaughter them for the crime of being in Davakar.
Yeah.
Not, not all clansfolk are like the Odavs or the Zereks or even the Carrots who you have encountered and were spiky to you. But even all the clans on the southern fringes of Davokar are far less openly hostile than the Gowans to the presence of Ambrians.
Yeah. They may have just come across an Ambrian settlement and thought, we can't allow this. They may be here they may be directed by whoever this is sending these letters for a leader. It's I don't know. It's hard to say. But the fact that they have come this far south is worrying.
It's the second attack this month by a group of people from the north with their clan tattoos obfuscated. To assume they're not related at this stage would be foolish of us.
That's true. If they were seeking out Brother Bartha, it's fair to say they may know about a leader and maybe here on the same business.
So there's another player on the board going down this trail of madness then alongside us.
I think when we get back to Karvosti, if we don't get an opportunity beforehand, we should find someone to ask about these tattoos. If we I don't know if we can assume that I've got sufficient things in the supplies, but can I make a sketch of the tattoo?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, sure.
I definitely have parchment and stuff. Yeah.
If you have parchment, there's plenty of charcoal around.
Yeah.
Just don't use the stuff that's a bit greasy.
Yes, I'll borrow some parchment off Anton and I'll do my best to draw one of these tattoos.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, so after Elindra has sort of, I was going to like a brass rubbing on the body. After Elindra has done this, are we kind of satisfied that we've done what we're going to do with the battlefield? Okay, are we returning? We're kind of at least partly taking up to Gesto on his offer, so I assume we're crossing back over the river.
Yeah.
Okay.
I say to the others, but I see no reason not to camp with them tonight.
Mm-hmm.
No, I see no reason to just not be completely forthright with him. He's been nothing but forthright with us. Just tell him what the plan is. We're going to go to, if nowhere else, then the pub at the jetty for the Sun Temple, get the news and make a proper decision then.
Yep.
I agree.
Do we also have... Sorry, Father.
I was just going to say that even the journey between here and the Sun Temple could be dangerous, and there's value in being in numbers for that. So, yeah, I think that he will take us up on that offer.
And do we have a couple of injuries as well?
Yeah, some healing time would certainly not go amiss, I'm sure.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, then you cross back over the river and find Gesto and his 4 remaining fellows. The 2 who are wounded are kind of back on their feet now and are helping with the last touches to the canoe and the oars. They're not as pretty and really sturdy looking as the ones you bought were, but he wasn't lying when he said he knew how to make a canoe. And the oars look fair enough. The canoe's actually a little bit longer than any of yours, but you suppose it has to fit 5 people in it or so. And it's definitely you can imagine that at some point this is going to spring a leak or have to be repaired or a new one have to be carved out. But you know what? He has definitely done a more than passable job of it. And as you kind of approach the trees, he looks up. He's kind of clad himself again now and put the axe away. And he looks up and says, well, am I to assume from the fact that you've come back to us that we're traveling together?
We're going to get a drink at the bar on the jetty of the Sun Temple. We're going to get the news, and assuming everything based on the news there, we'll make a decision on if we have time to go back to Karvosti.
I can respect a need for information. Right then. Let's set up a proper camp here. Get some food on the go. I might have a little bit of a treat deep down in my pack. A little bit of drink. We can rest up the night and set off at dawn.
Let's do it.
All right. Heroes of Thistlehold.
Oh, don't.
His companion starts setting up this, and he starts passing around a flask of quite nice Ambrian brandy, actually. There's not very much of it, so everyone can only have maybe a couple of sips. But it's definitely warming, because lest we forget, we're still we're probably right around that boundary between winter and spring now. But it's still quite cold, especially when you're out in Davokar without, a building or anything like that to lurk in. Everyone can obviously heal a point of toughness for the camping and the overnights. Yeah.
Can I, before the day is out, I take a look and maybe reset Alindra's dressings and do a healing roll?
Yes, because it is a new day, so absolutely.
Cool. And this is a roll against cunning.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and that's a fail.
Never mind. But Alindra, because it's a new day, you get to do another recovery roll, right?
Yes. So give me a second. I passed the resolute roll. I healed 2 points of toughness. So I think Steo, you're fairly sure that the healing didn't go that well. And then Alindra seemed to get better anyway and says, "Thank you."
It's the thought that counts.
Absolutely. But yeah, everyone regain a point of toughness if they need it. Is there any kind of we've already done a lot of talk in this session, but I'm open to more. Is there any kind of conversation we want to have either with DeGesto or amongst yourselves as we while away the evening? One of DeGesto's more fortune hunters returns from the forest with kind of a small deer-like creature that they managed to shoot down, which tastes fine, actually. It's an odd sort of... Ascarai, you might have seen these before, but the Ambrians made it's like a smaller, odd deer with a dappled hide and fangs drawn down from it that the Ambrians will assume erroneously mean it's some kind of weird predatory deer. But Ascarai, you know better. They use it for digging for roots and truffles and the like. Yeah.
I think tell everyone it's a vampire deer.
Nice.
At some point, probably pretty early on in the meeting, I think Steo's going to just start swapping war stories with DeGesto.
Sure,
unless he's being pensive.
No. He's quite the gregarious individual, and he will absolutely do that. He tells you of a number the events from his past. He tends to dwell on. A lot of them circle around he was in the Ambrian army in the early years of kind of the move over the mountains, and it's kind of sweeping through the plains and grasslands below Davokar, and he tells you with some enthusiasm about how involved he was with constructing and operating siege machines during the siege and assault on Halaban's fortress, what became Indaros, essentially the downfall of Clan Jazora, which is not maybe lots of detail you all know about, but certainly has some significance to your recent past of Clan Jazora and the revelation that they have now become this beast clan. He rather gleefully tells the story of on the eve of the fall of the fortress, all of his catapults missed their targets. His breaching pots would not explode, and the fog from his smoke bombs dissipated within seconds. In rage and frustration, he cheerfully admits to having gone berserk and broken the jaw of one of his assistants and then one of his superior officers. Facing demotion, he resigned from the army and has since made his living as a fortune hunter in Davokar. He seems very happy to run the chance of giving up his life for a possibility of finding Symbar. He briefly mentions trying once before and being nearly killed as his group walked straight into a monstrous Blightborn hunger wolf. Steo, if you want to give me a persuasive roll to see if you can eke a little bit more of kind of maybe the things he's less likely to immediately talk about. And we'll see.
Love a chance to roll against a 7, and I'm on -1.
Ooh. You're mine. Oh, because you're elder. Is it you? Has your elderly tripped?
Yeah, elderly procced because I failed the healing roll.
Yeah.
So 6 or less. Another 18, 2 in a row.
No. If anyone else is involved in the conversation, they can have a roll as well. I always mildly loathe throwing these things out because then everyone in the party rolls, and it's like, well, we're gonna get it no matter what. But if anyone feels like they're involved enough in this conversation to,
I'll have a go. I'm also persuasive 7. I also fail. More than
Maybe
DeGesto, I was kind of interested in some of the other people in his party, which I don't know if that's.
Oh, cool! The
give up
people
some
with no
information.
names or personalities for me to.
Well, yeah, like just to get a general sense of like how that party came
Yeah,
together and why they follow DeGesto,
Absolutely,
and what their names are, and
where they were born, how many siblings, you know, the usual stuff for my.
Yeah.
Cut to the chase. How many of them are called Baramo? Yeah.
Sure. Okay, yeah, you talk to them, including maybe most to the. Do you remember the young woman I said was the one who identified you as the sort of heroes of Thistlehold? And if we want, you know what, I'll name her next session because I can't be asked delving into the names right now because it'll only just be Elmendra, won't it? Like, or Ephanea, like
El Namer.
Yeah, El Namer, yeah. No, I briefly went, yeah, but no, because that's another EA name. We're not doing that. But anyway, DeGesto hired them, hired a couple of the members of the party on were people who'd worked with him before who he hired from Thistlehold. He got another couple of them on the way from Thistlehold to Carvosti. And then the others at Carvosti.
Okay, so he's just like an opportunist. He'll just employ just about anybody.
Yeah, and that seems to be the case. Like, she kind of tells you how there's definitely a varied amount of skill among them. And like, there was one other person who seemed like to be quite skilled and had decided to basically he seems so slapdash in his hiring, essentially, that he managed to pick up someone who clearly wanted to cut his throat in the middle of the night and take the group. And essentially, DeGesto found this out, accosted him, and in the struggle managed to quite easily break his neck and then throw the body in the river. So, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So he doesn't really seem to care who he works with, but he seems to be quite enthusiastically careful about dealing with them once someone problematic becomes apparent. Okay. None of the others had a problem with this. They all thought the guy was a traitorous prick.
Fair enough.
If he would cut DeGesto's throat, surely he'll cut any of theirs if the opportunity arises. So they had no problem with it. For what it's worth, DeGesto seemed to break his neck by accident.
Okay. Well, I presumably meant to attack him, and then the
outcome
was what it was.
She gets the impression he wanted to put him down and just accidentally just fucking killed the guy because he's built like a brick shit house, and that's what happens when someone huge punches someone who isn't huge.
Cool. I feel like we're really getting to know each other. It's good.
Yeah.
This
unidentified woman.
As he is an older gentleman, I will also be prying for stories of pre-fall Alberator, which is a slight interest for Aaron.
Sure, he talks a little bit about like his days in the Alberator army, and sort of you get a hint of some conflicts like before that, but he very studiously does not talk about the war against the Dark Lords, which is something you've encountered in many veterans before. Because they'll gladly tell old war stories, and then the topic of the war, like those 20 years, gets kind of glossed over. But that's about it, basically. At this point, he is both tired and slightly tipsy, and is more just kind of rambling about the siege of Halaban's fortress than anything else.
To sleep.
Okay. Well then, overnight, DeGesto slits up. No. So you wake up in the morning. DeGesto is snoring, but is roused quite quickly by his fortune hunters sort of taking it in turns to nudge him with their feet until he rouses himself. I assume everyone's piling in the canoes and heading downriver in what will presumably be a much faster trip than the one return.
Yep.
Or maybe faster, definitely easier. So there we go. Okay, so you start making your way down the river Malgamore. We're going to do the same thing we did upriver, where we just like talk a bit about the conditions every sort of few days and sort of give you a chance to do a bit of interaction or pick out some role playing if you want, and maybe I'll throw some little events or whatever. The journey is definitely easier in that you're having to work a lot less hard to kind of paddle downriver than upriver, as you might expect. This does help somewhat with the clouds of biting, stinging insects, which, if anything, seem to have multiplied exponentially since your journey upriver. That's not surprising as the weather gets slightly warmer. It's only very slightly warmer to you, but seems to be considerably warmer to these insects who have started spawning and flittering around with some enthusiasm. You don't kind of immediately see anything out of the ordinary as you proceed away from New Earthmore. You saw clearly the sounds and sights of them starting to repair their palisade and their gate and stuff as you left. None of them seem to kind of like particularly watch you leave or have any particular interest. They seem to be very insular in their interest in what was going on in the immediate aftermath of the attack. Nothing essentially particularly happens. You're having to focus. While it's easier to go downriver, there's also a bit more focus that's required moment to moment because you're traveling at speed, or faster certainly, which means you need to be far more careful about the prospect of bumping into things. Because obviously if you're going upriver, you're really choosing the direction you go. When you're going downriver, not so much. Why don't we are we in the same canoe groups we were before? Alindra and Revelia, Steo and Arin, and Antom and Askarai. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we have your choice? And this can be everyone's choice of either quick or cunning. And I want every canoe, and you can roll for Revelia obviously as well, Alindra. And I want every canoe to succeed on at least one roll, or we'll have some kind of circumstance happen. So Askarai failed.
Success.
Past both.
And Tom succeeded. Okay, so everyone but Askarai succeeded.
Thank God for Antom and his fantastic rolls.
Absolutely. And we'll say what happens there is like basically Askarai, let's say you're at the front. And as you're kind of paddling along, you see something out of the corner of your eye at the very last second. You register that it's a large log that is free floating just under the surface of the water and is kind of tumbling around. You're going through quite they're not rapids, but it's quite a fast area. There are some rocks and you're kind of steering around. And essentially, you open your mouth to kind of like shout that your canoe is about to be struck by a very large log. And Antom, quick as you like, has kind of like pushed out with his oar as you're opening your mouth to say it, and sort of hefts the log as far away as it can, and it sort of spins round, barely just about misses DeGesto's large, somewhat more cumbersome canoe as it does so, and he gives a kind of whoa noise as it spins past them safely. But yeah, if it wasn't for Antom's quick work, you both may well have been spilled into the water, which It's fast enough to be dangerous, but you probably have been okay. But still,
Good work, priest. So sorry, I should have been paying more attention. I didn't see it until the last minute.
It's not often that we're not reliant on your eyes, Ascarai. So happy to do my part.
I think I'm just drifting off with all this river travel. It's not something I'm used to, but happy as ever to be in your canoe, Anton.
It sure beats sharing a canoe with Steer, let me tell you that.
Yeah.
So I'll be over with Aaron and be, oh, thank goodness I'm in this canoe with you and not Father Anton. But no, the those pieces of paper, they were signed F, weren't they?
R.
Oh, R. Damn, there goes my theory. I read through my list of character names for no reason.
There we go. Who were you thinking it was? It was an F.
Faraban, actually, the high.
The bit of
That would have been some spicy
political treachery going on there.
But
no,
I'll double check for R.
Maybe it was Raravan.
Maybe Ravilia is the secret bad guy.
Oh,
Maybe
that would be the twist.
Maybe it was Raramo.
Maybe
I'm ill, but I've still got it.
Maybe it was a Ron's rear with a backstory.
Really good content, guys.
Yeah, let's let that one sit for a few seconds, I think. It can only get better. There we go. Okay, moving on from this. Let's cut to a few nights later, because you think it's going to be maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 days to make it back to the Sun Temple, and let's say we're 2 days away from New Earthmore now. Nothing has particularly happened. You can obviously all heal to toughness if you need to, and you are setting up sort of camp for the night on what do we want? The north or the south bank of the river? What do we think?
Probably south. But
yeah, I think we've had some bad experiences in the North Bank recently.
Yeah,
so.
sure.
Didn't we also see some weird things on the South Bank, though?
You did, but then I think you encountered them on the North Bank because it was the Beast Clan tracking them.
Okay.
Yeah. I suspect none of the banks are a good option, but yeah, let's try south.
Sure. Okay. Obviously, we have some kind of like routine in the wake of what happened on the journey up here. Actually, let's talk about this because DeGesto probably has his own notions of like what to do when you're camping and trying to be wary for the night. Sorry, I have a nightmare of a cat here. So, what are our precautions now? Traveling as a group of 6, 7, 11. What kind of precautions are we putting out there when we arrive at a place? What happens?
So definitely doing like a kind of a sweep of the perimeter. Perhaps a few kind of stepping further out, like want to know what's in the area when we arrive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we'd switch to doubling up on like nighttime patrol shifts. Guard duty.
Yeah. I think with 11 we might also like clear the underbrush immediately near the camp as well.
1 second.
Farron is being a hassle this
Absolute
evening.
menace. We'd also talked before about circling the canoes. Setting them up as like a defensive perimeter.
Canoe wall.
Mm.
And putting the NPCs on the edge of the camp, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems very.
Revelia is feeling very relieved that we've got some new fodder.
New meat shields, yeah.
Some even more expendable NPCs.
Here we go. So expendable.
Well, we're not
we don't
emotionally
even have
invested
their
in
names. No, a lovable but too persistent cat had to be removed from the room. So Yeah. So lots of watches, lots of searching beforehand. Sound good? Okay.
Canoe circle as well.
Yep.
Yeah. All makes sense. All makes sense. So you bring the canoes onto the land, flip them, and use them as like we got 4 now, right? So as like a square of an area you could defend more easily.
Yeah, like the worst palisade you can imagine.
Yeah, or like the worst circling of wagons. Yeah. A smaller aquatic circling of wagons. No, but that makes sense. So
do we have
yes.
4 or would we need 5? I can't remember how many
You
each one
have
can
3
see.
canoes and Degesto has 1.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah.
His one's bigger though, so it'll more be a parallelogram.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Great. So who do we think out of this group? And this might not be like every time, but who do we think are the people who would do the scouting around the campsite? I mean, obviously Ascarai, but how about we have one more person who might be involved in that rather than setting up the camp?
I think Elindra would volunteer, and I imagine Revelia would if Elindra did.
Sure. Okay, absolutely. Well, then, why don't this particular camping night, 2 days away from New Earthmore, why don't all 3 of you give me a vigilant roll?
Yep.
That's 2 passes.
Okay, then. Well, then, shall we say that a couple of Degesto's followers are like also doing kind of circles, but let's say the 3 of you are just walking together in like tight, ever increasing circles around the. Shall we say that? So that you encounter what you encounter together, and this is what you encounter as you walk through the area around your camp, which you've chosen specifically because there is a sort of dense, quite vast area of thorns, about 50 paces wide, that circles around a great deal of your campsite with like the occasional sporadic tree moving up through it. But it's quite difficult to make your way around, and you are kind of just about managing to do it while snagging your clothes because you just want a bit of a better look on the area before you decide that it is useful as like a really defensible piece of terrain feature. You know, it looks to be, but if it's full of horrible animals that are secretly hidden in the thorns, that probably wouldn't be the case. And as you're moving around this, you all spot something at more or less the same time. A large, shapeless black lump, maybe about 8 feet long and a few feet wide, like a sort of odd. It looks like almost like a vile, stinking giant boil. It has an odd, rubbery, slick surface that looks leathery and oily, and something is definitely moving around underneath it slowly, kind of like contorting and maybe writhing slightly.
Is it kind of coming? Is it like a bubble on the ground?
Mm-hmm. Like amongst the thorns.
Can I roll Beast Law to see if I know what this might be?
Sure, yeah, roll Beast Law.
I think that's my cunning, which is a 10, so I need a 10 or less. Rolled a 19, definitely not a 10 or less, so I have no idea.
Revelia also has Beast Law and also failed that roll.
Okay, yeah, no idea.
I've never seen this. It doesn't look good.
I don't like it.
Perhaps we should advise the others to move a little bit downriver and camp somewhere else.
Yeah, we certainly need to tell the others. I'm inclined to poke it with something, but not when it's just the 3 of us here, and possibly not at all.
Yeah, I would advise against poking it, but let's tell the others and maybe move on, maybe poke it, depending on what the consensus is.
Okay.
Go
Is anyone
rename.
going to stay and watch it while you go back to camp? Camp's not too far away, but like, let's say camp is probably about 100 foot away from here.
Asgro will stay and watch it if Alindra and Revelia want to head back.
Sure.
Okay, it's a good idea.
Yeah, Alindra and Revelia. Revelia seems quite excited by this. Just shows she hasn't been to Davokar enough. Yeah, you arrive back at the camp where everyone else is setting things up, and
we found something large and black and amorphous and moving and unholy looking.
And so we are moving camp to somewhere else, right?
That's the start of the discussion, and that's certainly one of the ways that it could end. Yes.
DeGesto, who was kind of like sort of gathering, like poking some firewood together, kind of slaps his knees and stands up and says, "Well, let's have a look at it then." He unslings his fire tube.
Steo's going to stand up with quite some similar amount of fervor and heft the enormous warhammer and kind of follow along.
Anton is going to sigh and count his medical rations.
and not get up.
Askarai, as you can hear a fairly big group of the others. Is Arindar coming along to this out of interest?
Yeah, might as well.
Yeah. So as they're kind of tramping along, you hear a big group of people kind of like arriving behind you through the trees. The thing is carried on riding.
It just looks like how when we first saw it, it's kind of doing the same stuff.
Yeah. Anton, I'm going to say that Lawmaster also deserves a cunning roll at this point.
Okie doke.
Oh, and you know what? I'll check if DeGesto has anything like Beast Law as well. He does not. No.
Oh shit! I rolled a 1.
You don't know what is inside this because the size is like nothing. Nothing you know of. But Anton, you've been trained in the basics of natural philosophy enough. This is a chrysalis or pupa. And there's something in there that is going to be born at some point.
Oh, no.
Well, what is it?
Because Anton doesn't want to be here, he's going to very much exaggerate what this is.
Sure.
So, but there will be a degree of truth in that. So this is the start of something Blightborn being born. This is how they are birthed, from my understanding. So I suspect this yields us no treasure. I suspect this yields us only trouble. And I suspect that means that we need to be on the other side of the river this evening.
This is absolutely no fun, is there?
Nothing good is born in Davokar.
And nothing fun should be done in Davokar either.
Could it have something valuable in there with it? There's plenty of us. It's not that big.
Size is not always the most important factor when dealing with enemies in Davokar, I guess. So
no, it's not a terrible one either.
I would suggest we move on. If we reach Symbar, we'll have all the treasures we need.
With a slimy, slick tearing noise, a small rent in the chrysalis opens up, and what flops out, seemingly like somewhat out of control still and sort of contorting and writhing, is what looks like nothing less than a large but very humanoid hand.
Ew. Oh no.
Is that someone trapped in there?
Prios's tits.
How-
To the canoes, anyone?
How large is it? Like meters?
It's no, it's larger. It's larger than a human hand, generally speaking, but not that much larger. And as it kind of works, it's attached to an arm which is sort of like kind of pulling backwards to pull the chrysalis more open, and you can hear a noise coming from in it that doesn't sound pleasant, but is definitely a kind of like, it's not some kind of like abominable screeching or anything like that. It is the sound of a humanoid creature not having a good time. Kind of.
Does Ascarai, out of interest, does Ascarai know where ogres and trolls come from?
See, this is what I was wondering whether the player knowledge and the character knowledge bounce against each other. No. What you have, I'm sure more than one of you has read it. You want the information that your characters are about to discover is, that information is not widely known, and I really wish was hidden in the books a bit more, because it's not known at all. Definitely not among Ambrians, barely among barbarians, and not even very much amongst the others you think would know it.
I think Ascarai is going to want to see what comes out of this.
DeGesto certainly doesn't seem about to run. He's got his fire tube like out and aimed, but is looking fascinated at what's happening.
How far at this point have we got through setting up the camp? Like what I guess the question is, does it seem like we could pack down, get in the canoes and get to the other side of the river before this thing finishes hatching?
No. I mean, it's it's not exploding out of there, but you think if it unless it's prevented, it will be out of there in the next 20 seconds or so.
Okay, right. Like we're committed to this then. Okay.
Like whether it comes after you or not, the camp's at 100 feet away. You could try and fuck off.
At this point, I think Alindra is going to draw her sword and have a little bit of a scream and
Sure.
ignite Revenant Strike.
Sure, absolutely. Within the next 20 seconds, no one's really saying anything. You can hear plenty of weapons being drawn. What spills out of the chrysalis, covered in slick, oily goop, is a large but not unusually large and thoroughly naked ogre, which rolls around slightly on the forest ground and then slowly starts to clamber up, making kind of like vague, wordless noises, and kind of like struggles a bit with the thorns, and then finds its way over to be like in a hunched position, looks up and kind of registers all of you, and kind of just goes in a kind of get away kind of gesture. It seems to be sort of standing its ground, like maybe pacing a little way and kind of like kind of quite mindlessly. Like most of the ogres you've encountered in Ambria are maybe not as articulate as most kind of goblins or humans or elves, but are certainly, like, some of them are clearly quite intelligent. Others, not so much. Mangold springs to mind from oh my god,
Jacket's Heart.
Jacket's Heart. But broadly speaking, they are communicative beings. This one, not so much. However, can all of you please roll cunning? Please roll cunning at this point.
I missed by one.
Oh my god, I made it.
Both successes.
Okay, so who failed then? and Tom and Ascarai. Okay. Maybe you are two are blinded by being used to knowing more about things in the forest, and therefore the others are maybe more open to this idea. Most stories about where ogres come from, whether apocryphal or ones you've heard to be literal, begin with them stumbling out of the forest, not being able to talk, and having to be taught a language. This might be how ogres are fucking born.
Absolute scenes. I really want to attempt to kind of proffer offer a drink. I'm going to give it like some of my water skin poured into a cup and kind of sip some of it and kind of offer it in a kind of hands open, friendly manner.
Ooh, do you want to roll a persuasive? And I'm going to put a -3 on it, I think, so it's going to be a bit of a tall order. You're on mute, by the way.
This is 4 or less, and I really want the friend. I might blow experience. That's a 12. Oh,
okay.
God.
You trying to adopt a baby ogre, Theo?
You sort of pour some water. You do that pantomime and you kind of hold out. And honestly, as soon as you start extending your arm, the ogre goes and kind of staggers back a bit, bashes against a tree, and then just wheels round and starts loping with those long legs away out of the patch, the vast patch of thorns, which it kind of scrambles through. And you can see it is a bit scratched by the thorns, but also not kind of cracks open some of the branches and sends them skittering through the undergrowth of Davokar, and then it's off into the trees. Like, some of you could try and mount a pursuit if you want, but DeGesto and his crew certainly don't seem to have any interest in it and are just kind of staring after it open-mouthed.
Does it look like a norm? From Ascarai's perspective, does it look like other ogres he's seen? And also, is it as big as other ogres he's seen?
It was a little even on the larger side for an ogre, kind of, but certainly within that, it looked like if you'd seen that ogre dressed in Ambrian clothes or clansfolk clothes, you wouldn't have blinked. Okay. Maybe at the amount of slime over it, but like obviously that
a completely normal, fully sized, if not bigger ogre. Okay.
Well, I think we've all learned something this evening.
I would love to hear your theory on what it is you think we've learned, Theo, but yeah.
Prios is light.
I'll just gesture at the pile of goo. We've learned that. That's what we've learned.
Where they come from?
It must be.
DeGesto was kind of like pulled the thorns aside and is like looking at the rather unpleasant and foul-smelling mass of goo and leathery shreds that's left of the chrysalis.
Ascarai will be joining him for sure, 100%.
And Tom, you need to write this down. The Ordo Magica are going to want to know.
I think you're right, Theo. It's, if nothing else, an important lesson to not believe everything that you read in the books. We have a chance to, really inform people about this.
Which
Glad
begs
I didn't splat it.
Begs a greater question of what on earth laid this?
I agree. I'm not sure I could trust anything that comes directly from Davokar, but ogres, I don't know, ogres seem friendly and...
Well, I hope we made a good impression. Poor thing. It's going to be cold.
That is the most fascinating and disgusting thing I've ever witnessed.
Can ogres swim?
I've seen ogres swim, but whether they're born with it, I don't know. Why, you want to cross over the river in case it comes back?
Or increase the watch tonight. There is something, like, hopefully it's heading away from us and it will carry on heading away from us, but we know now that there is something large and unpredictable nearby.
I'm happy to put on an extra watch, but I'm sour to the notion of a bit of extra effort to cross the river, being as Stio offering it a drink seemed to terrify it.
I think one ogre we can deal with. We should be safe to camp here.
Let's watch in shifts of 3 tonight.
All right. I need something to eat after that. He kind of glances down at the mess of chrysalis and grease and says, well, maybe not.
I've lost my appetite.
Matt, is there any like obvious tracks around where this chrysalis was?
Hey,
Like-
make a vigilant roll. You know, actually, I think if you've got a decent chance of finding something actually, because I was actually giving you a vigilant roll to say no, but actually, there is some. I think it's difficult. Have a vigilant roll at -5.
Oh, if it was -1, I would have made it. But
Well, there we go. There we go.
fine.
Sure. Back to camp. Okay. The night passes perfectly fine. That you don't hear or see anything of that ogre again as you pack up the following morning and make your way. It looks like one of De Gesto's fortune hunters decided to try and take some. Basically, said they were going to go take some of the hide from the chrysalis because they thought no one would believe them, and they came back looking slightly baffled and said it was just kind of like a wet mud-like substance now on the ground of Davakar, and it seemed to kind of disintegrate and fall apart overnight. So more mystery for to stoke that fire. You climb in your canoes and set out again, and it's only a couple of days this time, really without any big incident or event. Another boring couple of days of travel on the river before you come around a bend and see the pier of the sort of small Sun Temple related dock ahead of you. It looks much as it did before. You see a number of Sun Temple novices. You also see that exact same ranger sitting exactly where he was last time, sort of idly watching the novices go about their maintenance. This time they're not hanging off the edge of the dock, which is nice. I'm assuming we're bringing ourselves in and going to get a drink at that rather ramshackle tavern.
Oh, yes, absolutely. You shall hear it hit my stomach with an audible clunk.
Okay. There are probably the same amount of people. You can see again some traders who've camped. I think I said before they have like a little enclosure where there's like some tents and some like packs and things like that. There's not many, like you see a couple of like maybe like donkeys and maybe a couple of horses, but no big kind of like no one's parked a caravan or anything. You wouldn't be able to get it through Davakar to this point, but you can sort of traverse the riverside with like some amount of pack animals and the like. And when the ranger just kind of he's seen your passes already. He can recognize you. He gives you a sort of friendly nod and says, well, "Good to see you made your way back." He turns to De Gesto and says, "You're missing a few, though." De Gesto sort of nods grimly and actually eyes him quite aggressively for a second before shaking his head and walking on.
Yeah, bit of trouble in that area.
I think
maybe we could exchange stories and information if you have a moment.
I see no harm in it.
I will have some. I'll have my kind of coin pie chart and just be kind of surreptitiously kind of looking over the money I have, just so that the guard knows he's getting paid for this.
The Queen's Ranger nods. I think we did bribe him for information last time as well, right? So it's
We did, yeah.
not like he's averse to that. And he kind of nods and says, "I won't say no to a drink." There's been a few parties moving around. Did he mention the Black Cloaks last time, or did you mention the Black Cloaks at all to him?
I think he did mention, didn't he? He mentioned the Black Cloaks.
Maybe he did. I can't remember.
That would have meant that they overtook us.
Yeah,
so-
we were,
Yeah.
we were ahead.
Which is, I think you were ahead of them by a day, weren't you? So no. He says, group of Black Cloaks came through. First one way, back the other. Less of them on the way back.
But they've gone back already.
Passed through 2 days ago.
Okay.
Did they
Another
say
group.
anything?
I'm not talking to Black Cloaks.
Understandable.
There was another group of hunters went up there as well. They're in the inn right now. Headed by an ogre, by the look of them. They do what he says anyway. A few less of them as well when they came back. So clearly the place isn't that friendly. Sure you still want to go?
Nope.
Something we need to think about.
I don't know where we go. It's that friendly these days.
You heard any news from further afield?
Aye. So I think you've heard of the army outside Thistlehold.
Yeah.
Well, the latest pilgrims mentioned they'd seen a cavalry unit, 100 men from Saragon. They reckoned that now there's 5,000 on the fields.
Does anybody have any idea why a force that big is amassing there?
No, there's the usual talk. Trouble with the barbarians, trouble with one duke or another. Who knows?
So,
Hell, maybe it's Night Pitch. Maybe he's making a play.
so no idea even where they're going to march to from there.
They're all keeping it tight-lipped, apparently. Maybe they don't know.
Are they even marching there, or are they camping outside of Thistlehold?
Last I heard, they were camping for now. Maybe it's even other dukes or the Queen deciding to put down Night Pitch. Putting the men there first to levy the threat. Who
The
knows?
siege.
Maybe. But someone's in trouble.
That's concerning. That's a big force.
Aye.
Haven't seen that since Haliband fell.
Sounds like the High Chieftain's responding to it as well, just in case. Some movements of barbarians through the forest. I guess he wonders if them 5,000 are for him. Warriors arriving on the plateau. You got to imagine that the other dukes are doing the same thing. Well, those who aren't sending men to outside Thistlehold already.
Doesn't do anybody any good to have such a large army that nobody knows where it's headed.
That's a lot of money to spend feeding, clothing, and housing them.
The problem with armies is whenever you put one in one place, eventually it'll meet another one. Oh, I wish there was some good news.
That's all I heard tell of anyway. Hope that helps.
Well, I'll hand over. I think I'll hand over 2 shillings, which I think was roughly what I did last time.
Thank you. I'll have a nice drink tonight. You staying?
I think so.
For tonight, at least.
I don't know how much room there is, but you can always bed down in the stables.
Oh, we'll camp if we need to. We're just happy to be near some humans.
If you do camp, stay in that enclosure. Makes it easier to keep people all together. It's been a long time since we had anyone attack this outpost, but why take the risk?
It's a busy part of the forest these days.
It is. And most of the guards are at the temple, not out here. All right, then. He kind of gestures with the coin you've given him and wanders over to the tavern himself. Just to be clear, tavern is a strong word for what this is. It is basically a large stone and thatch shack. And a number of people are like even sat outside it. Like you see that Digesto and his fortune hunters went in and got a drink and just came back outside and are like leant up against the wall, just kind of having the drink. They don't seem to be too interested to go inside.
I mean, I was picturing like a fantasy lemonade stand, so that's
Sure.
still grander than I was thinking.
Yeah.
Adult lemonade. Yeah, and I'm definitely going to go in and pick up a brace of pints.
Okay. Is anyone going in with Steo?
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, you all walk in, and as soon as you walk in, you realize that like it's quite a stretch to fit you all in here. Not just you, there are other people in here, but like there's an innkeeper behind a bar, which is, 2 barrels with a long set of planks on it. You see a couple of novices sat around kind of nursing kind of small beer and kind of just water. And then occupying most of the room is what seems to be another group of fortune hunters by the look of them. Various individuals, a couple of humans, a couple of goblins. One of the goblins seems to be missing an arm recently and is sort of sat back, kind of feverishly twitching a bit and sort of clutching a sort of a large mug of water to its chest, but somehow holding on. Looking over them, and I probably should have done the image for this. Let me try and I haven't clipped out the image for this character, but I will try and do it via the magic of zooming in on a PDF, while missing all other information. Oh, good Lord. This is quite time consuming to do, but 1 second, it will probably be worth it. Now I've got to window it so that you don't see the stat block and details. Okay, here we go. This will do. There we go. That is what the ogre looks like. Quite a bit different from the most recent ogre you encountered. Yeah, he has that kind of like, I guess what we'd call like sort of stereotypical barbarian armor. Like there's leather straps holding on that shoulder guard. Like a large weapon positioned to his side. And as you enter, he kind of slowly turns and takes you in very openly, kind of measuring you up before giving out a sort of inhaling of phlegmy breath, and kind of turning, and he's not spitting at you, he's spitting away to his side before he kind of turns back and takes a sip on a large tankard of ale, and just basically, as long as you're in here, he's going to be staring at you openly.
I think Asriah will stare back at him if he's being stared at.
He doesn't seem to have an issue with this.
Aaron will try waving.
He registers literally other than staring at you, he visually registers nothing that you do. I think we're getting our drinks.
I'm absolutely getting my drink.
How well sort of bandaged up does the injured goblin look?
Pretty well bandaged.
Okay.
I mean, there's only a certain amount you can do with someone who's had their arm removed for whatever reason, but like he's not in a good way, but he could definitely be in a worse way if he's lost an arm recently. So
Is there anyone who looks like they might be more approachable than the ogre?
I mean, there's the novices, and there's the innkeep who seems to be. He occasionally is kind of looking between you and the ogre's group in a sort of.
I meant.
I hope these two don't start fighting.
I meant from the ogre's group. Like,
from the ogre's group. They've all got their heads down and are like quite intently not looking at you.
How many are there in the ogre's group?
They're including the injured goblin and the ogre. There's 5.
Good evening.
To anyone in particular?
To the ogre.
As I say, he will literally not
nothing.
react to anything you do.
Cool. I'll just.
Not as in he looks comatose, as in he's just.
No. I was like, as like Elindra will wave a hand near his face to see if there's any
near his face, like getting into his
not
face.
right up in his business,
Okay.
but like
Right.
yeah.
No reaction.
Charming.
The innkeeper leans forward a bit and says, "What will you have, gents? Please don't." Just, there's no cause for it. Please don't. What would you like to drink?
I'll take a beer. Not the talking type, then.
I would just take the drinks quietly, or maybe even outside, as your friend did.
Okay.
He killed someone a week ago outside that door.
Okay.
And the ranger did nothing, and the novices obviously did nothing, and the Templars were all up at the temple. So, I'm not casting aspersions on your skill with that blade in any way. I just don't want to see anyone else dead.
I understand.
Thank you. He said all this quite quietly.
Yeah.
And he starts serving you like all your drinks. He doesn't have very much. He has a pale, kind of quite watery looking ale and some cider and a couple of what seem to be extravagantly priced bottles of cheap wine. And water.
Did we all hear what he said?
Mm-hmm. As long as you're all kind of gathered together at the bar, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, if
Sure.
you didn't, I would sort of, with my eyes, kind of indicate that we should head outside and kind of relay the information to anybody anyway.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. You take your. Are you taking your drinks and just joining the Gesto?
Yeah, I think so.
I'd say so, yeah.
I might
Thoughts?
slide enough money for another drink over towards the barman and just say, you can pour one for the ogre over there as well.
If you say so. Yeah, you all leave outside. De Gesto is kind of like he's stood up now and walked away a bit and is kind of looking kind of pensively at the path up to the north to the Sun Temple, sort of rummaging in his beard with the other hand.
Who'd have thought that the only pub in 200 miles would also have the worst atmosphere of any pub in 200 miles?
His name's Cleaver.
You know him?
Run into him before once. Not into him. He's got a reputation.
Barman said he killed somebody just out here a week ago.
Well, that would match with the reputation.
Is he that dangerous?
We're all dangerous.
Yeah, in fairness, we've got a reputation too. God, this is crap beer.
I'm just thinking.
He's not smart enough to be out here on his own.
Someone in that party knows what is in Farmer, and I'm just thinking maybe we could get him to tell us what it is. And I don't know if it's more dangerous to try and do that or try and go to Far Maroon.
You know, you need to be smart to go into Davokar or stupid to go into Davokar. But to go to a ruin, come back and then wait a week. What's he doing here still?
He hasn't waited a week.
Oh, is he just back, is he? So
I guess he didn't the innkeeper didn't lay out the timeline, but he definitely didn't say he'd been here for like extrapolating. He could have arrived a week ago, killed someone, gone to Faramir, and come back, and now he's here, which is what has happened. And if you ask around, people will say that. Yeah,
he doesn't have any grudge with you, does he, Degesto, or does he have a grudge with anyone, with everyone?
From my limited exposure to him, he's got a grudge at the world, but no. I've never crossed his path in a bad way.
Does he?
I've seen him at some ale houses, some outposts. People talk, pointed him out to me. That's it.
Does he stare at everyone like that?
It's what he was doing last time I saw him. He didn't seem happy to see us, though, did he?
No. Like I said, another party on the trail. As is marked as competition, I imagine. Which means we're probably not going to get any good information out of him, or, to your point, who employed him.
Did that ranger say anything about the Black Cloaks?
Yeah, they come and gone.
Lost a few.
Serve these lot.
Aye, one of those goblins was missing an arm.
There's only 5 of them. It's more of us.
Well, we don't know how many of them went north. We only know how many came back.
But what I mean is, there's no one here who's gonna. If we want to get information out of them, I reckon one of those novices would talk, and I think it might be safer than going to Far Maroon. But I don't know what.
You want to take one of his people and force answers out of it.
I don't know about force, but maybe offer a trade. If they want to fight, it's an ogre.
I'm not entirely against it, but I would warn against the notion that they found everything. That cleaver doesn't seem like the most inquisitive sort.
That's a fair point.
The Black Cloaks, on the other hand, maybe.
Yeah, but the Black Cloaks, they've got tunnel vision. They'll be going in for exactly the thing they're looking for. They won't catch the clues.
And either way, they're gone.
You started to think about heading north. Now you've landed here.
Given some thought to it. What's going on at that dock? Degesto, who's he's the one, because he's turned around from the north, he's facing south now, and you're kind of talking to him. So you didn't see it, but as you turn around, you can see that there are what appear to be a fairly large group of individuals, maybe 20 or 25 or so, all dressed in Prios robes, kind of various what look like priests and novices, arriving on foot, looking rather bedraggled and the worse for wear, at the docks.
On foot from where?
They look to have come from the west. As you see them kind of arriving, you see a relatively large figure with a bristled, bushy beard push out from among them and start to sort of yell at the novices on the docks and kind of take one of them by the arm and kind of like shake them a bit and kind of it gives a sense of giving them orders. Those of you who have interacted with him instantly recognize Father Pyramai, the head of the Sun Temple on Karvosti. He does not look happy, and no one in the group looks either happy or well-fed or in any decent condition.
Do we recognize any of the other kind of priest people there?
You know what? Beramo is with them.
Yes! Yes!
And on that cliffhanger.
Yeah, you know what? I was. Well, let's have just a little bit more. Let's say that Beramo does move around Father Pyramide and kind of shoots him a somewhat venomous glance, and kind of staggers forward with a couple of other novices behind him, and sort of like staggers around and kind of goes onto the inn and sort of drops his pack to the ground and sort of like bends over with his hands on his thighs and kind of looks up and then registers you there and kind of says, Father Anton.
Father Beramo, you're a long way from Calvosti.
I am. Did you... You don't know, do you?
No.
We were exiled from the plateau.
Exiled by
Yes.
the...
Are you going to finish that?
driven away?
Yes. And it was this or Thistlehold. Pyramide decided to make this trek because he's an idiot.
News from Thistlehold isn't exactly good right now, so he may have made the right call.
Maybe.
What happened on Calvosti?
De Gesto kind of steps up and says, the High Chieftain, what, he exiled you? No. The Sun Knights. They've seceded from the church. The Templars drove us from the Sun Temple.
All of
the
them?
Plateau. Well, Elisabetta is the second in command of the Sun Knights. Her father gave the order. They said that Prios is dead, and so would we be if we remained.
Wow.
And on that cliffhanger, which I'd like to think is a slightly better one than Beramo turning up, I think we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for playing. If you've got comments or questions, pop them in the chat and we'll pop them up after our promo to give them a talk over. But big events happening in Ambria. So let's do that promo before we move on. If you check down below the video, there are a number of links. Links to Twitch and links to YouTube. Twitch is where we stream live. That's probably what you're watching if you're watching right now. And YouTube is where all of our video on demand goes. So please go check that out for further series and games and all sorts of stuff. There's also links to our Discord, our social media, and our Patreon. If those are things that interest you, check them out. We have a couple of ongoing campaigns at the moment. This is Symbaroum on Wednesday nights. Vason is on Mondays. And we also run one-shots on a monthly basis. I've had a couple of them quite recently, and we have another one coming this Saturday where Pierre will be running Dungeon World, which is pretty much a sequel to one we watched recently, although one we ran before, which you can go check out on YouTube. But I think people should be able to pick it up fairly easily without moving forwards. Dungeon World's kind of a loose, slightly surreal, odd, improvisational thing, so I don't think you'll be too stuck if you don't have time to catch up before this Saturday. We were stuck on 499 followers for like 2 weeks. And I was going slowly mad because it wasn't a round enough number for me. And then today, we had a follow from Osiris Burning. Thank you very much. You were our 500th follower, so thank you. But also since then, Aeonium Forever, we've also had a follow from you. So we are now on 501. That round number taunted me for so long and then was only in my grasp for a few hours. But nevertheless, Aeonium, thank you. You are our 501th follower. So thank you for that. Cool. Let's have some comments and questions. Don't kick food, the Beramo of bad news. I've got nothing to say about that. Naga, this is the moment where we get Beramo NPC follower. I'm killing him next session. No.
I can only imagine how difficult it was for Matt to decide whether or not to bring Barrowman
I did.
in this session.
It's funny that like Mike did say that to try and lead me into saying it. I had actually already decided earlier that I was I'll put Barrowmo in. They like Barrowmo for no reason at all. Literally no reason. There is no reason. I don't know why.
There's one very important reason. Because it annoys you, Matt. That's why we want Barrowmo.
I mean, he's literally the only character in this campaign whose name I've remembered consistently over the last 3 or 4 weeks.
He's done nothing.
And yet he's done so much.
I'm only digging a hole for myself even further by expressing frustration.
You know what? I think you've actually done yourself a favor, though, because I think if the Sun Temple...
You are aware this is bullying. That's what this is. You know that, right?
Even worse, it's cyberbullying.
Yeah, you're being cyberbullied.
If the Sun Church had been driven from Carvosti and had turned up at this place and Barrowmo wasn't among them, we would be immediately abandoning the quest in order to go and avenge it.
Avenge Barrowmo. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Sure, he's our Barrowmo. Yeah.
You say he's done nothing, Matt, but he's stolen the most powerful artifact in all of Symbaroum. That is our hearts.
I'm beginning to see why Matt hates him.
Steve, would you rather sleep near to one massive horse-sized chrysalis or 100 small duck-sized ones?
Yeah, definitely a horse-sized chrysalis.
Definitely, right?
Yeah, I think so.
No doubt.
Yeah. That's very good. Don't give you large, black, amorphous, moving, and unholy looking. I guess that's one way to describe the cat. Yeah, sure. The cat's louder, though. The cat's more annoying than a grease-covered ogre that slipped out of a chrysalis and made odd, meaningless noises at you. So, yeah. John, imagine the size of the canoe we'd need for that one. What, for the ogre?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Or to just pop the chrysalis in and float it back downriver. We found this. And why have you brought it here? 42, can't you just put a spider on the bow? On Askarai's bow or on the bow of the canoe?
I think the idea was to attach the spiders to the arrows.
Oh, the throwing
have
spiders.
Spider arrows.
I think that's a very easy way to get a spider bitten hand and 2 bisected bits of a spider in your future.
There are there are plenty of easier ways to apply poison to a bow in Symbaroum mechanics as well.
There's easier ways to bisect a spider as well. So should that be your goal?
That's in the advanced rulebook.
Yeah, I think that's page 416 actually.
Well, it's that they've taught us for it's the bisecting spider source book, which they released obviously for the Swedish V1, but they haven't adapted fully for V2 yet.
I can't wait.
In any case,
in many ways, I wonder why we play the game without it.
Yeah, get to it, Free League. Come on.
Yeah.
Ascarai refuses to have spiders anywhere near his bow.
Yeah. John, even the Church of Prios doesn't agree with the Church of Prios right now. So yeah, this was those damn Church of Prios. They ruined Prios. So yeah, obviously this is something that's sort of been kind of hinted at or bubbling over for a while, or there's something coming between the two. Like, did we anticipate a full-on schism? Did we kind of see that coming, or did we think it was going to lead somewhere else, or to a less dramatic thing?
I think I need to point out just to viewers to make it absolutely clear when I sort of rolled up a character that was a Templar who was conflicted in their faith, I had no idea
no.
that any of this was going to happen. So
what I really like is the kind of very, and I think we can all agree, kind of very real sensation of events occurring that we only barely understand at a breakneck speed, drastically changing the landscape of our lives and being completely powerless to influence them in any meaningful way.
Yeah, and I think
that's nice. That's nice escapism. Thank you.
Yeah. And also in the game.
Yeah. And I think this is something that the Throne of Thorns campaign actually does, both in terms of things you can't influence and things you actually might be able to influence, like with those grand sweeping changes and kind of the world evolving with the campaign, is something I think it actually does really well. And we're definitely going to see more of that as it goes on. But yeah, Wrath of the Warden, he has some of that, like a massive sinkhole in, and finding out about the Jezites and the like, ooh, there's things going on in the church that might not be, and all these elements, and like, oh, the prophecy, like these tablets hinting at other things happening, and it lays those seeds in actually, I think, a pretty good way of like lots of little things that it's just planting these little notions for. And then Witchhammer is where a lot of it starts to, like, oh shit, things are actually properly happening now. So yeah, it's
nice. It's a nice way to keep like us grounded as players, because like while we're kind of like locally famous, like we're still not the center of the world.
Exactly.
There's a hell of a lot that's going on beyond us. So,
and a lot of that will happen utterly regardless of your actions. So, yeah, definitely. Nightbites, doesn't the Bronze Spear have some cool kind of backstory? Nightbites, it fucking does.
It's a stick, but one side of it's sharp. That's basically
Look,
it.
I know it's fun to taunt the GM, and even more fun to taunt me specifically. But where's the love? That's all I'm asking. Just where's the love? Where's the other side of that coin? Where's the other side of all this cyberbullying? That's what I want to know.
I don't know. I mean, I take your point, but I raise the point: where are all the cool powers that everyone else's enchanted weapon has, but for my spear?
Do we have any enchanted weapons at all?
Yeah, because no one
Alindra.
switched them on. You've got a cloak that basically mind controls people. We've got the Hand of Doom that's just in storage somewhere. We've got
No
like
one has
12 different
paid.
artifacts.
No one has paid to have these things examined. It's all on you.
I don't have any of this. I don't even have a cursed sword.
Elindra's sword might have something to do with it, but the Revenant Strike, which Steel probably doesn't know, the Revenant Strike is Elindra, not the sword. But yeah, there's something up with the sword, clearly. Yeah. It's International GM's Day on March the 4th.
Oh, wow.
Why is there no International Players Day? Bit of a meta joke there for you, especially for anyone who follows Richard Herring on Twitter. Yeah. Although, in that case, that would be silly. Players don't deserve an International Day. Especially these ones. Don't Kick Food. I could unfollow the channel to get back to 500 if it would help you feel appreciated. I'm with you in theory, Don't Kick Food, but please don't. Don't send us back to the darkness. Because if you do it, someone else might do it. Like, this is the thing. We're on 501 now. We're probably going to drop below 500 again at some point, because it's constant, shedding of bots and stuff. So please don't.
Sounds like a bad gateway or something like that. 501.
Please don't. We need the approval.
All right. That's enough. So thank you again for watching and playing, folks. And we should catch you next week for more Symbaroum, barring an even wider outbreak of disease amongst our crew. But we'll see how things go. And in the meantime, if you're interested, do watch our Dungeon World one-shot this Saturday. I probably should mention, Pierre does run it, but in the player roster for it is Holly, who we haven't seen for a while since Cincinnati Chronicles, I don't think. And we've got Mr. Plague here.
Hello.
John will hopefully be playing in it if he's feeling better. And we got Chris. God, my finger disappears when I do that. Look at that. That's weird. Chris is also in it, so...
We have had Holly recently because she was in the One Ring follow-up one-shot.
Of course she was in the One Ring follow-up.
Definitely watch both it and the prequel.
Yes, absolutely.
And yes, if you ever watch one shot, oh my god, that syntax was awful. Do go watch the Dungeon World one as a prerequisite to this one, because you will see the character cast that made us all almost immediately jump back on this whenever Pierre offered to run it is just... It's a ragtag bunch of crazy, lovable creatures.
Wonderful. So yeah, catch up this Saturday. Thanks everyone. Take care. Stay safe. We will see you next week. Goodbye.